today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about how to share the emotional load in a partnership. Traditional roles should get tossed the hell out. Ladies, if you want to release the emotional load, you need to train him. Men, you need to learn. You need to allow yourselves to be taught how to do that. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller. And today we are talking about why she is tired of carrying the emotional load and how you can help her to carry it. That's right, folks. It's an ongoing part of the series on man keeping or / women keeping, inequalities and inequities of partnerships today. So let's talk first about the emotional load in real life. A woman listener has asked, why do I always have to be the one keeping track of everything for a family? So guys, in case you don't know what that means, she's asking, why is she tracking the birthdays? Why is she tracking what's going on with the in-laws? Why is she tracking what's going on with the sibs? Why is she tracking what's going on with the schools and the friends? Why is she tracking what's going on with your shared friends? Why is she tracking all that? And where are you in that mix? The emotional load equals the mental and emotional GPS of a family. Relationships and families have a place in their wider family, in the wider culture that is unique and separate from the two individuals. And the relationship of that family or that relation of your relationship, of your marriage, does not just happen overnight. It is driven either consciously or unconsciously. For, I would say, centuries, women have been conditioned and trained to take the lead in this area. And part of it is because their structure of the brain that evolves in a genetically female body naturally lends itself to better peripheral vision, better reading of microexpression and body language, etc. That's part of it. But the other part of it is that men have just given that over. And so here's the deal, fellas. As we're moving to a more financially equal culture where half of the prime wage earners are women and half of the prime wage earners are men, and where everyone works and is employed because it represents a form of personal independence and personal development, not just something you have to do to feed the family. As we move into a culture where we're less about survival mode and more about growth and fulfillment, these things that we've come to expect are always going to be carried by one gender or another will no longer be carried by them. We're already seeing men changing diapers. We're already seeing stay-at-home dads, but we're talking about more than that here. We're talking about kin management, relationship management. And it's really interesting because in the past, when we were more of a survival-driven culture, when it was harder to eat, when there was less vast abundance like there is in the United States today, kin relationships were a major form of survival. If your branch of the family was doing really well and your cousins not so much, they might come to you for support and sustenance and help. You might move in together even in those days. Family blood bonds were a very vital and important survival tool. In today's society, where, let's be honest, if you just want to survive, you could live off the shelter system and get food stamps and eat out of garbage cans and look for handouts if you just want to survive, right? You don't need your family anymore. We live in a culture where survival, and I'm not talking about growth and fulfillment, I'm talking about basic animal needs, can be met much more easily than, let's say, 100 years ago. And as a result, people are defining their own families. There's approximately 20% of children today have alienated themselves from their families because they don't think their families serve them. They don't think it's an emotionally safe environment, and they make new families for themselves. 100 years ago, they wouldn't have been able to do that as easily because families needed each other for survival. Well, in the same sense that survival is not a primary issue for us anymore, we now enter a time where gender fluidity is a much more acceptable concept. Now, I'm not advocating that we should all be androgynous. I'm not advocating that men should be more like women and women should be more like men. What I'm advocating for here is that traditional roles should get tossed the hell out because we're not living in that culture anymore. And in order for that to happen, we're all going to have to work at it. A female listener, 41, says, "My mom did this without complaining. Why does it feel so heavy for me?" In 1972, men handled the financial load. Women handled the emotional load. Both were expected and accepted. That's how it was in 1972. Not that long ago. It's 50 years ago. But today, financial responsibility is more balanced. 63% of couples are dual income, and that makes the emotional imbalances much more visible and less acceptable. In fact, I think we said last episode, 39% of women are prime wage earners today, which just wasn't true in 1972. Because survival and finances are so different, partnerships and social interactions have shifted as well, and we all need to catch up and move forward. In fact, the most successful families, here's a prediction, the most successful families in the next 50 years will be families that see that men becoming more emotionally, ecologically aware, more emotionally fluent, more able to not only identify emotions and express them, but identify them in others and know how to receive them and handle them. Those are going to be the most successful families in 50 years. And I'm not talking about the Forbes, whatever it is, Forbes 500 of wealth. I'm talking about successful on every front. I'm talking about the most well-adjusted children. I'm talking about families where children are seeking personal fulfillment and growth. And the families where women take on the financial mantle, as we talked about in the last episode, at the same time, not exclusively, but with their partner, those are families that are going to be mad successful in, what are we talking about, 2075, 2050. A listener asks, if I stop steering, won't everything fall apart? This same listener is complaining about man keeping. But at the same time, she recognizes that her husband, who speaks Stone Age emotional, in terms of emotional expression, is living in the Stone Age, is what I'm trying to say. She complains that she's man keeping him. She also recognizes that she chose to partner with this guy. And what I want to tell you is it's the steering emotionally. It's that you keep stepping in for him that keeps him from growing. Man keeping or women keeping, whatever you want to call it. Man keeping, managing the emotional well-being of the man and their relationship with others. Women keeping, managing the financial well-being of the woman and their financial relationship with others. Both of these are ways to incapacitate the other person. It's a form of enablement. The trick is to educate them up, to grow together in these areas. And I'm here to tell you that letting go of control of that area is the first step. Now, letting go of control does not mean that you push him out of the nest and say, fly, little bird, fly. Men are not like birds. But it does mean, what are the steps? I would say the first step would be, number one, educate your husband on all the emotional work that you're doing. Write it out on a piece of paper with him. How you feel you're helping him with his feelings. And you'd like that reciprocated. You would like to come to him with your emotional problems and have him help you. Maybe educate him on how to do that. Or even better, all right, I'm the husband whisperer. Send him to me. I'll teach him how to do it. 2, explain to him all the family, immediate family, the children, how you manage the emotions of the children, how you make sure they feel secure, how you make sure they feel nurtured, how you make sure that they feel that their emotional needs are being met, that you are attentive and watching, how they know that you're watching. Educate him on that. Write it out. Write out all these areas as I'm speaking them. Third, map out for him how you manage the relationships with your parents and his parents. Fourth, how you map out the relationships with your sibs and his sibs. Fifth, how you manage the relationships with the neighbors. Sixth, how you manage the relationships with the other parents in school. And how all that carries over into your job, how that carries into your friendships, your shared friendships, and your own individual friendships. That's step one. Map it out. Step two, engage him in a conversation about what his goals are for the emotional well-being of the marriage, his goals for the emotional well-being of the children, his goals for the emotional well-being of his siblings and your parents, his goal for the emotional relationship he wants to have for his neighbors. Why do you want to have a relationship with your neighbors, whether you live in an apartment building or you live in the suburbs or you live in the, great Northeast or Southwest or wherever, and there's people's 30 miles away, you still want to know your neighbors for one reason or another. What kind of relationship do you want to have with them? What are the boundaries going to be? And who's going to manage them? Have a conversation with them about friends, friend group. Why do you have the friends that you have? What is it you're learning from them? What is it they're learning from you? Why do you care for them? Do they care for you? Is it an equal relationship? Are you always reaching out to them? Are they always reaching out to you? Once you've engaged him in this conversation, the next part is to enroll him in a long-term conversation about how those goals for each of those areas are going to be broken down into milestones. This year, what do we want to accomplish in terms of friends? This year, what do we want to accomplish in terms of our kids and their friends? What do we want to accomplish in terms of our kids and their friends' parents? What do we want to accomplish in terms of our work friends? What do we want to accomplish in terms of our marital development and growth? Emotionally, individually, what do we want to accomplish? How do we want to grow this year, 5 years, 10 years? Engage him in this conversation from the stance of his strength. Men, if you're listening to this, engage in this from the stance of your strength. Your strength is always going to be abstract thought, long-term goals. That's what your brain is made for. Then next, guys, you're going to fill in, not 100%, call it 30%, for some of the emotional heavy lifting. First, 100% with your partner, guys. You are going to lean in 100%. Why is she feeling what she's feeling? How is she feeling what she's feeling? How can you help her? How can you be there for her? I would throw out, how can you help her? She's tired of you helping her. She just wants you to be there. She just wants you to hear her feelings. If she asks for help, you give it. Or if you feel like you have to help, offer to help. But if she says no, take that as the answer. We had a loss in our family recently. My wife's father passed away. And she made a decision that while he was ailing in another country, she was going to go there with her immediate family and all husbands/wives, anyone who was married and was not going to be there. It was going to be strictly family for this moment. And I was very ambivalent about it, but I agreed to it because I honored that A, it was her family, and B, she was very clear about what she wanted. Now, while she was there, I was communicating with her every day. I made her communicate with me because she was not being her usual emotionally connected self. She hit a point where it looked like maybe she needed my support. And I said, I am getting on a plane and coming over there now. And she said, no. Give me another 24 hours. I got this. And 24 hours later, she turned it around. So I helped her to see that things were a little unstable and she maybe could use some support. But when she said no, I honored it and she worked it through on her own. And then she came back and allowed me to be there for her and with her family, for funeral arrangements, et cetera, et cetera. This is an example of being emotionally attuned and connected, of being a sounding board, of when you see a crisis, a moment where you as the protector feel you need to step in to express it, but always honor the instinct of your partner. That's what I'm talking about. Now, was talking to me as helpful as talking to her best girlfriend? In some ways it was better, and in some ways it was worse. I'm her partner. It was better in that sense. She's absolutely 100% safe with me. Could she be as emotionally articulate with me as she could with maybe one of her best girlfriends? Probably not, because they're communicating their meta language, let's call it, is grounded in a level of understanding about emotion that's much deeper than mine. So there's messages and sub messages that go on in that conversation that my ears do not yet hear. That's what I'm talking about, fellas. I'm talking about getting involved on that level so that when your wife goes away, you can step in with the kids. While she was gone, organized a dinner with my children. I made sure I was communicating with them and supporting them. We were talking about how we were going to support her when she comes back. Like, I did all that stuff that she usually takes the lead in and I follow along in, because I knew from following along that that's what needed to be done. And I'm her emotional partner. So what I'm talking about here, guys, is not so much that we're going to learn to be women. We're going to learn how to lean into our own emotional fluency and connection as best we can as men, so that if we need to step in, we can, and she feels supported instead of like she's carrying the load. Right now, she feels like she's carrying the load, dudes. So a guy asks, if we both lead emotionally, won't we step on each other's toes? And so he's missing the point. The point is, she is going to lead emotionally. We are going to support her in her leadership because she's better suited to it. Unless you're better suited to it. You may be married to a woman who is exceptionally not emotionally fluent, in which case you might lead emotionally, fully possible. But for the most part, it's going to be like that story I just told you of me and my wife, where we step in and we help because we're training and always preparing to be emotionally fluent and lead emotionally when it's needed. When a backup leader, we're the backup singers, guys. The fact of the matter is, there can only be one leader. So each area of life has to be divided in such a way that the person who has strengths in that area is leading in that area. The other person can take 30, 40, 50% of that area, but the other person will give them direction because they have a deeper understanding and a deeper fluency. So it's not about two leaders. It's about unburdening her so that she can be a better leader. It's about unburdening her and being as fluent as possible so that if she needs to step out and take care of something, you can still be there in a way that feels caring and supportive to everyone. The other piece of this is, even though one person is going to lead in each area, each partner needs to feel mutually empowered in any goal, in any milestone, in any decision. Now, full transparency, I will bow to my partner in certain areas because she knows more about them. Sometimes I'll do it with a protest. Sometimes I'm proven right, but more often than not, I'm not proven right. When I am proven right, there's a lesson to me that perhaps my partner is not as strong in that area as I gave them credit for, and that I need to be more attentive in the future. Similarly, my partner will bow to me in certain areas. Having the right and ability to veto or bow is empowering, and it takes a load off. What I'm talking about here is a partnership where both people are 100% on the same page. And if they're not 100% on the same page, they're willing to accept that if they allow the other person to pursue the choice that they made that they didn't fully agree with, that they have in essence chosen that choice themselves and are willing to learn a lesson from it rather than kicking the other person's butt, which is what we all tend to do. The payoff here is equality with differences intact, whatever they may be. It actually means a deeper level of connection. When you're clear about your goals and you're clear about who's going to lead in each area, everything runs more smoothly. The best example I can think of is when you're running a household. Basic logistics of the household. Everyone needs to be responsible for something. Someone needs to be responsible for the garbage. Someone needs to be responsible for paying the bills. Someone needs to be responsible for making sure the lights are off. Someone needs to be responsible for making sure the garage is in order. Somebody needs to be responsible for making sure that the sheets are functional. Someone needs to be responsible for making sure things get cleaned, yada, yada, yada. Each person owns that. Does it mean the other person will not do those things? Not necessarily. Both people may empty the garbage. Both people may make sure the sheets are 100%, but one person has primary responsibility. In fact, it works better when both people it works better when both people lean into an area of responsibility with one person leading. It works better because then there's a synergy there. The synergy occurs in allowing one person to own it, but both people being willing to step in. And that's what we're talking about here. If you want to help her with the emotional load, ladies, if you want to release the emotional load, you need to train him. Men, you need to learn. You need to allow yourselves to be taught how to do that. And that's what we're going to do moving forward. That's how you will have the most successful synergistic family of 2050 ever. Hey, I want you to follow, get involved with the Rich in Relationship, because we're going to be giving you more tips on how to synergize your relationship so that you experience greater joy and greater prosperity in every area of your life. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about the feeling of abundance in every area of your life. With that, I'm going to tell you, have a wonderful day and an awesome tomorrow.